Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of the Isle Lore podcast. Today, we're going to be discussing the gut systems, general infrastructure, and then we'll have a little bit of a topic about some recent designation stuff that we've gotten. Today, I'm here with Lightclaw, and we do have a bit of a different format that we're trying out to
Woohoo.
make us a little bit more visual and interactive for the audience.
Hmm.
So
Um.
let's start off. Let me get my presentation up real quick. I believe the first one that we have up on the uh, board, I'm going to call it, is the sort of moat thing into an emergency shelter. No, that's not the emergency shelter. That's like a main entrance. The emergency
Hmm.
shelter is a separate one, but it did have a boat. So let's actually talk about those emergency shelters a bit, because we did get a quote on those in, I believe it was August, right? We might have already
Ooh.
discussed it a little bit in a previous episode as well. It's fine. So
Was
it's
that like that artwork from years ago that had that little boat?
mm-hmm. So
Hmm.
the emergency shelter, Donnie said they're meant to be small little emergency shelters imagined for no more than one person, but it grew into the concept of housing an entire team that were stranded for any reason. It's basically it's emergency shelter. You have stuff you need to survive, you bunker down, it's got electricity, you can call for help, you sleep, stay there until whatever's going by passes, unless there's something in the bunker with you, which I think would be very exciting.
Hmm.
Then let's move on to a different one. It's the, I believe it's sort of warehouse sorting area, which we actually do see a little bit more of here. I believe it's sort of, gosh darn it, this area
Hmm.
where
Is
it's,
that the is that guts the what's it called it the hub?
yes, that's the hub that we got in the announcements channel.
Hmm.
So this is a little bit of a combination of this and this. Well, it's a combination of art and then what we've actually seen in game. So
Hmm.
I'm assuming it's some sort of sorting area, which Guts Hub definitely seems to be, as there's, well, that's pretty much its purpose. It's an entrance from the entrance of Guts to the actual transportation area, facilities underground, whatever you need. And
We haven't discussed the hub, haven't we?
no, we haven't.
Like, haven't. You want me to say the quote that they have in phase three?
Yes, yes, please.
Perfect. So I'll say from where it starts the Guts hub. So Guts, the industrial hub. The hub is a large layout composed of one main room and several smaller side areas, supporting multiple paths either through the main area or via smaller side doors. This design allows us, future creators, to control how far larger animals can feasibly enter these locations. It is used to connect various sectors and player footpaths to one area. The hub I've shown today is an industrial sector hub, a loading area with site administration offices and a security overlook. This is commonly found as a facility entrance checkpoint or much further within Guts itself to connect research and development or work sectors. The additional rolling shutters and doors within this design allow for up to 10 possible connections leading to other locations. And the pictures that you see right now, the lighting, all the decor have been simplified uh, while they finish up, quote unquote, Apollo engineering propaganda and beverages for you to consume. So there'll be images where there's a vending machine, and that vending machine is not of the final model, or the lighting, that lighting from the concept art hasn't been properly embedded yet. So it's all like plain Jane,
Yeah,
light,
there's the vending
lighting.
machines.
Yeah, but there it is. So yeah, I just add to it. This is supposed to be not a. This is not supposed to be a one-off thing. It's not supposed to be like the atrium slash perimeter, where it's like a one location. In of itself. This is supposed to be a modular system. This area isn't just called the industrial hub. It's an industrial hub, but they're showing it. They call it the industrial hub in this context because this is the industrial hub modular system. So you'll see. this administrative checkpointing s sort of areas likely around from point A, point B, wherever, maybe one at the docks, for example. But yeah,
Yep. So I like to think of the general underground infrastructure of the island as an ant nest, just because that makes the most sense to me. It's all underground.
yeah,
There's connecting tunnels, different purposes for each ones, and I'd say that this is not necessarily a storage room, but like maybe an antechamber between main areas,
yep,
because
yeah,
it's a middle area. You use antechambers
basically, yeah,
for reading. It's it's very stupid to talk about because we're just repeating the same thing, but it's all it all comes from here, and it
yeah.
this does also, as a middle area, offer a lot of
Mm,
connection to branch into other things, and potentially you can see
yeah,
things here that'll like let you know what's up ahead. Like
mm,
you see a bunch of empty vats, oh, there could be a lab up ahead and these vats never got shipped.
mm,
Or you see a bunch of crates full of food, you can realize, oh, maybe there's a storage area or a, not a recreation area, but in a living area. Maybe there's
yeah.
a living area ahead. So this could be significant in how you see stuff in
Oh
game,
yeah.
but the main bit is how important these would have been to the actual island's functionality itself, as this is
Mhm.
where all of this stuff presumably gets unloaded, sorted, and sent to where it needs to get to go.
Yeah, I suppose like this, whenever you go to a hub, that's your bottleneck. That's the bottleneck of Guts itself. You have presumably tons of tunnels, but tunnels are just highways.
Hmm.
But this is this is like, as you've just basically said, or like how I've said. It literally is, to how it's described, a bottleneck where you have a mixture of like administration stuff. So if you go to the slides where they have like the desks
Yes.
areas there, I presume like they'll you know yeah, exactly that one. Now I was looking at that one just before on the phase three. You've got like paperwork there, and they'll stamp off whatever. They'll say, yeah, this is fine, this is fine. I honestly 100% like have a lot, like would place my money, real money, on saying that yes, I believe one of the, like, a hub will definitely be at Dockyard, because you have this this large facility area, the docks, which is getting all these imports or exports, but I'm presuming it's going to be a large amount of imports coming in, and you'll need to use the guts to get around the island much more easier than going through a tropical environment. You have crazy weather patterns, just the nature of a tropical place. Rough terrain, high altitude changes and mountains and stuff like that. So if you just have a singular road, a linear tunnel, far more easier. So like the necessity for these sort of things are big. So I'm really curious as well. I'm actually in the process of writing my Errant 291 script, and I'm actually curious on if the glance reference documents like the map. I wonder um, if we will see any relation to Errant 291 being in a guts tunnel for his journey before he died, because we get the reference to him wandering near D section interior. It gets me thinking that this interior just means you know like the guts entrance. So maybe like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm theorizing of stuff that we barely know about,
Yeah.
because like, yeah, there's a guts reference in the Errant 291, the guts access route. But did he die within a facility like perm? Like, if perimeter slash the atrium is gigantic, we know it is. But if it has all these different like little facilities within, he wouldn't have died technically within a guts tunnel. He would have just died on the route, still within the atrium, while while leaving, or going to Olympus transmitter, but presumably leaving Olympus transmitter because he writes offline.
Mm.
Um, so it is interesting because yeah, sorry. And then the reason why I bring this up is because I don't know if you have the image, but Dondi has had a picture of like a law paper on a desk. Did you get that image on the slideshow?
I might have. I don't
Might have.
think so, actually.
Okay. I'll just describe it for the people. See that desk? See that desk on the slide you have up? The one on the right. There was a paper of the BIP. I don't know how to say the proper full
I
name.
might be able to
BIP,
find it and
sorry.
pull it up real quick.
Potentially. If you do get it, I'll describe. So there's a paper. There's a paper that has the BIP. might be on there, and it's basically just the glance reference, like the dinosaur spreadsheet. Now, Dondi said basically there's going to be more new ones of those ones. So anyone who's listening, there's a bit more new stuff to look out for, for the next Horde test potentially, besides, rather than just Myosaurus. But also there is a chance that we potentially might get new actual lore papers like Errant 291. If we don't get those like any new lore papers like Errant 291, there is also a higher chance than that of getting the Errant 291 sheet itself. And if they do bring that, I hope to God, I pray, I cross my fingers that that if they do have the Errant 291 documents, it's not just randomly placed. That it's there are Dondi alluding to further the story, a bit more context to the story.
So I did find the image that you're talking about. I have it up on the
Perfect.
screen, but you won't be able to see it.
Okay, perfect. But yeah, I just hope, fingers crossed, because I would like some world building to like give us better context for these characters, because like of course Dondi said Errant 291, and other characters aren't going to be reoccurring. This is a large company with many stories within, with small stories within. Um, we're not going to see Errant 291 ever again. Maybe a reference, but I would feel much better inside to know that Dondi and whomever is placing these sheets, you know, thematically. I don't really care about the dinosaur glance sheets, because everyone would need a dinosaur glance sheet if they're going outside, in case you want to know what you're dealing with dinosaurs. But like something like Errant 291, you don't need 30 million copies everywhere. Of course, that's hyperbole, but I don't know. It's just a little hope. Cross my fingers that it's hard to ask for that because it's very niche. But
Right.
Dondi, it's his lore. He's the director. He does a lot of map stuff. Although he's not the main map dev. He's the director. But it's just those little things.
Yep. Going back to
Yeah.
what you said about like the interior of perimeter, I think it could be interesting because we know that. Hey Oxel, we're doing podcast stuff. Um, we the what we're currently doing, the interior of perimeter. We know that guts, while we do use general underground transportation or generic underground transportation system, we do know that the interior of perimeter, for all we know, could also qualify as a guts sort of thing. It doesn't have.
I mean, we do
It's so
see
enclosed
things
and
within it.
claustrophobic that it could
Hmm.
theoretically qualify as that transportation system as well.
Yeah. The inner walls of perimeter currently, you can see the atrium. There are like it. You could potentially have it in a hybrid. There's no reason to have it where it's you know, just connectors to buildings rather than also going inside the buildings. Just because even though we know that Guts is officially generic underground transportation tunnel system, that doesn't mean it's specifically just that, as we see with the administration area. It's not specifically just that, because that definition by itself, well, I'm rambling here, but I mean, the meaning of what we were given by Dundee was old, firstly, and also it's not officially what it's called in law. It's just officially referred to that by Dundee, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Since we are starting to circle back to several topics we already touched, let's touch on this one that I currently have pulled up because it looks like a sort of bus station or maybe a monorail station that is within Guts, because that's separate from the Guts, what's it called, hub. Because this was given to us in the devlog, correct? And then the hub was given in phase 3. So
this was, I believe, the entrance area. I believe, like the updated entrance area. I believe, like for a Guts tunnel,
yes,
which is interesting. You got I presume it's it's all modular, so you might not have times where it's an elevators in there, but it is interesting to have different elevations looked at But it does look interesting. It does look like a bus section as well. It does look like
There's
it looks
also
like
a sort
yeah.
of security door over there as well, and the fact that this
Mm.
could also connect to that hub potentially as a sort of not an airlock. What's it? Maybe an airlock, something similar to an airlock where you sort of it's a safe space where you filter out any potential threats or anything else like that, and you can also use it to inspect employees because you can see this little security shack over there. I do also have a
Mm.
separate thing from the outside where you can see security doors, and there's anti-vehicle barricades in there as well.
Mm.
So
Oh, those doors remind me of in theatre what they were called again. They were called the firewall. When if there's a fire, a large metal sheet of fire of I don't know what steel I think just falls, and if you're under it, you're basically by foot, goodbye arm.
yeah,
But it's crazy. That's what that reminds me of. I wouldn't presume it just
well,
immediately,
it
but
could be
it's.
an emergency door by nature of the
I mean, it
door
could be.
opening
Mm.
and closing up and down. If you turn off whatever power is to that door, it's going to be very difficult for anything to get in.
Mm. I do see the wow, what are those things called on the floor where they
The
what
anti-vehicle barricade, the one that pops up and down.
yeah, yes, yes. Sorry, I think you might have said that before, but
Yes.
it is. I just noticed them now, and I just realized I've had a lot of memories with those things. At my old school had used to have them, and they used to get filled up with water. And so if
Hmm.
you dropped it up, if you pull it up and pull it down, it water splashes everywhere.
Right. But the security cameras as well, because we also have seen
Mm.
references to the replicator using security cameras in the past.
Mm. A
So
nice motif.
yes, so we could the potential of seeing things that way as well, and potential of being inside of the guts in a security. You lock the doors down, nothing can get in, and you just watch your friends get mauled by a pack of raptors through the security cameras, and you can't do anything. Is just
Mm.
so like there's so much potential with everything that all of this provides. There's so much infrastructure as well, and I did also review that you recorded a VizTech stream years ago and posted it on YouTube.
Gosh,
I
yeah.
looked over that, and they did talk quite a bit about the infrastructure of the island and how there's going to be collapsed tunnels and how the parts of the monorail system like would be like open, but then there's other ways to get around besides the monorail system. How there's little breaks where you can get off and get out without having to go through the monorail, and then there's main tunnels and all sorts of other things. Guts is just so massive, and we've already just seen so few parts of it that it's really hard
Mm.
to explain exactly what everything is going to be, especially because we do know Tartarus, the big thing that we all want to talk about, but know painfully little about. Well, at least I do. But I wasn't here for Legacy. I know we got a little bit more on Tartarus
Yeah.
and Legacy, but how much Guts connects to Tartarus is another thing. What even if Tartarus is on Gateway, or if Guts is exclusively a Gateway thing, which I doubt it is. I feel like it's a designation rather than a physical location overall.
The elevator in the entrance doesn't go up, it goes down, right down to Tartarus.
So let me pull up.
Imagine, it'd be very interesting if Tartarus was just very easy to get into. It's just like, it's just got a cool name. It's just got a scary name. Just don't be scared by it.
Well,
But,
there's a little bit reason to be spooked, I believe. I personally wouldn't want to run into a neuro in the dark of a guts tunnel, which brings me up to something else. When Dondi last streamed, he mentioned that as a Gen 2, he'd be trying to spend most of his time underground, which I believe makes a ton of sense, especially
mm,
because of like guts tunnels allow humans to not negate but lessen all of the strengths that dinosaurs have over them. The big ones aren't able to squeeze through. The fast ones,
mm,
there's lots of turns, corners, and uh, there's general hazards for them to have to navigate around. The
mm,
limited space also prevents them from using their night vision to go super far, just because you can turn a corner and then there's four more corners. Like
mm,
the by nature of it being a tight and claustrophobic human structure, it negates a lot of the mobility and the freedom that dinosaurs have, and that really allows humans to be safer underground, even without considering the potential benefits that you can get, such as food, weapons, supplies, fuel, that you could get from underground stations within Guts.
Yeah, there's a good. I do actually agree with you, and I think looking back on it as a reflection, reflection, um, it is actually like it's a good design to have your dinosaur faction, your human faction, not try to interact with each other, especially in this case on the Isle, just because you know naturally you're gonna get people playing this game like Primal Carnage,
Hmm.
like the Hunter Primal, where you'll get people just wanting to kill each other 24/7. And of course, this obviously doesn't stop people from doing it. You know,
Right.
Guts is just
You still have
painful.
your own
But
choice, but there are
well,
certain
yeah,
advantages
yeah,
and
yeah.
disadvantages.
To the extent, if you're a carnivore, if you're a big carnivore, like potentially removing like maybe Trudon and some smaller carnivores, you can't you are being if you go through a Guts expecting to kill some humans, you're going to get a shotgun to the face a lot more easier than if you're using the environments, the environment of bushes, the environment of the forest. You're that one Dundee stream where Punch was a T-Rex or a Carno, and Dundee was a human. No, he was a human, but he was the. I think it was before they got the model attached. But on stream, it was just you couldn't see the Carno, but the Carno could see. Carno has a third-person camera. The Carno has a big wide camera, and you're playing with 80 FOV first person, maybe 90 F. I don't think I can't confirm or deny because I actually don't know.
Right.
But you're playing with, not wide angle camera. You're playing with, a camera that's worse than a natural human peripheral vision, um, to an extent. Um, there are pros and cons, and I do like that separation of Guts. And I almost feel like, do they want to then actually keep or retain non-Euclidean geometry or the design of Guts? Of course, it's not law; it's magic, truly, technically.
Well,
But
it's in game. The
yeah,
non.
yeah.
We should
In
probably
terms of
explain a
in-game,
little
do they
bit
want to keep it?
because we should probably explain
Yeah,
that a little bit. So Dondi's mentioned the potential for Guts to be non-Euclidean terrain, which
mm,
basically means it's going to be shorter on the inside than it would physically be on the
yeah.
outside. So you travel a
Think
lot
about the
quicker through Guts potentially,
yeah,
if they can get that to work out the way that they want to. But I
mm,
imagine that's more of a gameplay thing rather
mm.
than a lore thing where Apollo engineering is breaking the laws of physics in order
Of course,
to
yeah.
save tiny amounts of money on fuel.
Fuel and costs for making tunnels,
Yes,
because I don't imagine it being cheap.
but
Although it does come as a contrast between Legacy. I think anyone who's played Legacy, there's a lot of things in Legacy were explained through, like in-game was explained through lore. I think this just comes as a contrast where you're prioritizing, well, no, you're pretty real, you're rhetorically, where the devs are prioritizing creating fun for design than having to explain everything through lore, which in a sense it's very tedious trying to do that. And there's no point, trying to say, oh, let's just give an explanation to every gameplay design because in truth, it's unrealistic. It's exhausting for a single writer of lore, and it's exhausting then having the single writer for lore being the director, and then having to force the gameplay designers to create boundaries or parameters or whatever to fit with the lore, when it should just be, I want to play a game for fun. I don't want to care about lore. And that's the great thing about our lore. You're not pushed to know it. You're not, to become dinosaur, insert secret magic code, you
right,
know,
it's a
or
fun
strings.
dinosaur game where you can
Yeah,
tune
it's a
in,
fun
be a
dinosaur game, but
dinosaur
you're playing
game,
as humans and
and then
dinosaurs. You don't have to worry about lore.
for those that are interested, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that you
Yeah,
can look into.
exactly. And that's what I like. And that's what I liked about both laws. I feel like there are times where you're in other games where you just get confused. And because it's a survival game, it's not a story game. You don't need to be worrying about all that stuff, which is good. And, I tip my hat to developers for trying to go a different direction in both lore-wise and gameplay design in correlation to what I just said prior. Anyways,
Yep.
what was that next point? Was it still guts?
Yes. So something I wanted to bring up. We mentioned how the interior of Guts, there's like benefits to being small. That being
Mm.
said, Guts is like there are different parts of Guts, and some of them are massive, as what I'm showing on the screen right now. Like this little white dot down here, and this little white dot down here. So I had my mouse on. This little white dot down here, and this little white dot down here are people. And there's massive amounts of space for almost anything, I imagine, on the island to get through there. Why anything that big would be in there, I don't know. But it's a choice that they could make. And that is, like, once again, freedom of movement. You can do what you want. But if you're able to use guts tunnels, and you know which guts tunnels are open, and you're able to use them to fast travel, as we said, that could also mean that they're a good spot to set up ambushes, especially in these larger portions. So really learning player behavior as well could be relevant to this, sort of like how you can set up a ambush in the valley between Highlands Lake and actual Highlands proper. Like, player behavior, that's the quickest way between, it's the most common way. There's the other ravine, but people don't use that one as much. So if you just go as, say, a Herrera, or if you're feeling spicy, a Dibble, and just post up in the thinnest area and wait for stuff to come through, you can absolutely, like, get a hit by learning the game, which is another thing, because all of these choices allow for so much variety that you learn the players as well as the game.
You love it, you hate it. Yeah, that's just. I guess it's the pathway of every gamer, every human being is to an extent trying to create a way of simplicity, efficiency more so. But anyways,
Something else about those sizes. This is a Rex over here, and this is I believe it's the main entrance that we've been discussing recently. This one right here.
Yeah.
It clearly can't get inside the elevator. It can't get in with the small bits, and that is a very short run for any person. So if you have warning, Guts absolutely, as Dondi has mentioned, seems to be a fairly safe space for humans from at least larger dinosaurs.
I'm curious on how modular. Like, I know they've talked about it being modular for, like, in terms of, like, map making, but I wonder how modular it'll be with interaction of stuff like that. Go to the last one. Sorry, the one that was just before.
Yep.
Stuff like yeah. I'm just curious in terms of. It's just always a thought. I wonder what Gen 2s could do. Like, can they sit down in those chairs or
Right.
go through the elevator or see that little block at the background, like where the windows are? If you can go into things, because I always find it like a bit painful in video games. Of course, it's restrictions because of performance reasons, but where doors won't open and windows and things are just uselessly like placed there for like, oh, let's just add environmental storytelling without it being utilized because that's how we design. But I don't know. It is interesting.
I agree.
Just as a note though, just that visual tech concept art. Just anyone listening. That one was from like 2022, and that the model being was 2022. This was ages ago.
Yeah, this
I think
is like
early 2020.
he decided to give a very rough estimate of like how big the tunnel would have to be to allow the train through.
And it is interesting if you look back on the Guts monorail, just the monorail, I should say, from years ago, from when it was on the stress test on Gateway, it was much smaller. And I think for me, I just get biased. I'm like, oh, but no way, it's going to be that. I think there is a potential that we won't get to those big like tunnels properly, but there's always a chance though.
Right.
It is always just for anyone listening, just like, or do be cautious that the big tunnels might not actually come if
Right.
we are. Yeah, but anyways.
And everything that we have is all concepts and stuff that we've seen before it comes out. Everything's subject to change.
Yeah, of course. Good to always have that little disclaimer, of course, once.
Probably should have said that at the beginning. But all of the different stuff, I'm really interested to see, like, what all other than passive doors and security cameras, if any, is there like deterrences for dinosaurs? Because I feel like just like cats, they hate the scent of citrus. I feel like any sort of scent marking at the entrance of a door and just capsaicin, just pepper spray a pillar and keep the carno away. I think any sort of other passive systems for deterring dinosaurs would be interesting as well.
I mean, I feel like it'd be weird if your character is. I feel like it'd be exploitable if you have like a scent thing where you're pushing away dinosaur players
Well, maybe not
like
like
from the
literally push
company.
away, but maybe it like blocks or negates their scent, and that discourages player to be there because that takes away one of their main assets that they have, where they're able to
Mm,
smell corpses or smell footprints, and the strong scent overpowers it, or something similar.
mm. Yeah, it'd be interesting. It's a bit like Legacy Rain with Adopt Scent.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much that would like push back players, like human dinosaur players, but it'd be interesting though. If like maybe you can't smell their footsteps anymore, for
Mm-hmm.
example, maybe that could definitely affect, especially with new scent change, visual effect changes. I can imagine it being can be quite difficult if you have something like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see in terms of how they build this dinosaur player interaction because it is like the first time done really where you have two factions, two major factions, not trying to go against each other mechanically. It'll be interesting to see.
Yep. Then there's also
Yeah.
the third faction that we haven't really been mentioning, primarily just because I'm of the opinion that Gen 1 on Gateway, due to that one specific quote that I refuse to let go and is probably outdated at this point.
No, I don't think it's outdated though. I don't think it's outdated.
It might be. You never know. But I'm of the
Right.
opinion Gen 1 aren't on Gateway. And
Mm.
that also, like, imagining a Gen 1 with the potential to climb concrete, all of the assets that Gen 2 have against dinosaurs in Gen 1 would immediately that Gen 2 have against dinosaurs, Gen 1 would potentially, like, based off of what we're assuming, immediately
Mm.
flip all of that against the humans because
Oh yeah.
they do have night vision. They are able to see, and they're also able to move in a similar fashion, and also potentially better because of their ability to climb. They're able to exploit human structures to the best they possibly can in order to hunt. So
Mm.
I am interested to see, uh, since I don't believe Gen 1 are on Gateway, if the other islands, how Guts changes if Guts are also on other islands that Gen 1 are potentially on.
Mm. Yeah. I think for me, in terms of just, I know it's a podcast, basically just me and you like conversing, but for me, I of course, as Rumpel would know, I agree on the opposite. So I do believe Gen ones are on Gateway. My, how Dondi says it, he says there are no. I'm going to paraphrase, but there are no one. There's no
There's no
time where there's
one
Gen
island or
ones, Gen
time.
twos, normal humans, and dinosaurs at the same time.
Yes.
So for me, that means the timeline would be something like there are normal humans, so employees, and dinosaurs. Then they make Gen 1s, and then you have normal human, dinosaurs, and Gen 1s all together. Then Apollo Engineering gets attacked, from rival company, Holy Wars, whatever, they leave. So normal humans leave. Then you have Gen 1s and dinosaurs, and then you have AE sometime later, however, whatever timeline it is, however far the timeline is. Then they send Gen 2s in, and then you have Gen 1, Gen 2, and dinosaurs. But you don't have modern, normal humans, employees. That's how I see it. I know Rumpel disagrees.
Yeah,
It
I
works both ways.
yes, I
Um,
went with the thought of, oh, there must be a bunch of different islands, and each island has its own separate
yeah,
designations and assets on those islands, and that was my
yeah.
assumption based off the
This is,
quote.
I presume this is all like in terms of official stuff, because the unofficials can do whatever they want, of
Yes.
course. So that's, it's unofficial it's called unofficial. But yeah, in terms of official, in terms of like people, if they're thinking like, oh, what about unofficials? We mean just officials,
Right.
because that is the official experience, of course. But
Right. Unofficials
yeah,
do have potential. Like, they can do whatever by letting them do whatever they want, rather than potentially being bound to an honest the core story. That does allow for a
mm,
lot of flexibility. Like, you can have a just Dino server and
yeah,
create a map that is semi accurate to what the prehistoric era could have been, and just
yeah,
in like there's tons of people who are just playing it for the dinosaur game. I know there's people who are
yeah,
upset that humans aren't in, and I know there's people who are just waiting for humans to be in before they play because they want to play as humans with dinosaurs. It's just such a difference between all of the different types of people that can and will play the game, and
Yep.
unofficials provide all of the experiences. Well, unofficials should provide all of the experiences, especially if they're given all of the tools to do so.
Yeah. Like, of course, every game has one direction, and that direction is the director's direction. Who could have guessed? But I do have to commend, there's not a lot of games that will realize, oh my goodness, we have opinions. And, of course, you can't diverge the game where it's completely different in an unofficial than versus the official. Still a video game. It's multiple video games. But I do have to, pat backs for, realizing that people want to do their own stuff. The
Yes.
Isle is their sandbox, basically. And they want to do what they want to do within the parameters of the Isle. So it is good how, with what you say, I'm just imagining like realism servers going beyond and beyond, above and beyond, and having where it's like Permian Triassic dinosaur, early Triassic dinosaurs, Herrerasaur, but modding also capabilities and stuff like that. I'm just gonna have Cretaceous, but yeah, it'll be interesting, that little future part. Of course, it's not really lore, but a nice little remark.
Right. Then
Yeah.
I feel like we've mostly exhausted the underground infrastructure conversation that we currently have at us.
Definitely.
You said you wanted to discuss the synth and designations for dinosaurs like that.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. I'll just end off the guts bit. Actually, no, I'm not going to end off the guts bit. We'll have a look at the synth stuff. So I'll just pull up the quote because that's what all cool guys do. Uh, we got some recent information. I don't know how long ago it was, but September maybe September, end of September, October.
I
But
do
we
have the
basically,
quote in the podcast channel, I believe, or the No
yes.
Mike
Oh,
wanted to.
okay. I'll just go off what I have in Law Theory document.
Alrighty.
So what basically recently happened is we were discussing about Shirley, uh, uh, which is the Rex heard in the background of the Augustus video. Shirley is an old character. I remember Dondi talking about Shirley ages ago, but it's one of those things that has just been sustained as a thing that Dondi wants to add, and guess what? It's added, which is great. But Shirley is a T-Rex within Gateway. We see in the Augustus video, as said before, where Augustus is Herrera to exhibit climbing. Shirley presumably scares Augustus from roaring. We don't actually see Shirley on screen, but recently we were discussing it, and Dondi came in and basically, said that there's also another T-Rex. I can't remember the specific quotes that I said, but there are those two main T-Rexes. One is Shirley, and one whose name is even older than Shirley, which is Dean. And then we also got to learn about the designation names for T-Rexes, because we actually didn't see it in the Augustus video, it was just all blacked out, which is TYR dot 12 S point 003, which is interesting because that uses the same 12 S of Augustus as well. So it's a bit more clue into what could that identification system means, because we had an episode where we were talking about it, I believe, Rob, where we were
Yeah, it was either one
theorizing
or
what it
two
could mean.
episodes ago.
Yeah, basically ages ago, you know what I mean? And it's really interesting because that was like the Lineage X location tag that we thought it was like unique to Augustus, and now they have the same lineage and lineage/location name, and maybe we have a bit more information on inside, but we won't discuss that yet because I think we want to get a bit more information. But then we would then refer to a descriptor word called synths. So, for example, synths are, where is the quote? I'll just say what we have in the theory document. The descriptor word synth, such as synth.003 for Shirley, is used as an in-house shorthand when referring to actual names. Then, after, wild-born animals also contain designations based off the parents there. So wild-born animals would be referred to as a synth. If you've ever watched a cyberpunk esque movie, maybe like Blade Runner, you have referenced as a synth. Synths are, these cyborg esque, and creatures, animal things, synthetic humans basically. And so we have Shirley. uh, presumably also Augustus, and presumably also Dean. Dean would be synths themselves, which is interesting. But yeah,
Yep.
you
Then
have
you actually,
perfect.
in the quote, mentioned that synth, not Sith, getting
Yeah,
into Star Wars. Synth
it
sounds
happens.
interesting, to which Johnny responded with synthetic lineage. What can I say if you come from the machine? And then proceeded to learn a little bit more about the replicator and how the
Mm,
tomb is part of one of the replicator systems and all of that. It's a series of systems. We should
mm.
eventually we're gonna have to remake that very first replicator episode.
Exactly. It's interesting. I also find synthetic lineage interesting. I think I was just thinking about it just then. I feel like if we look at Augustus's name tag, it's HRS dot 12 dash S, sorry, 0.174 Augustus. If we then look at how they refer to Shirley, which is synth 0.003, I think we're getting something wrong here. I think if you, well, I think if you look at Shirley's synth name, so it's synth 0.003, it doesn't say Tyrannosaurus or TYR synth. It just says synth 0.003. I'm going to presume that the number section doesn't mean that it's the third Rex. I believe it must mean it's the third synth of whatever, but it's the third synth, which is interesting because, I mean, of course we need more information. I think this would much more confirm it if we knew if because Augustus was also named synth 0.174. But I have a feeling instead of Augustus being the 174th machine created dinosaur, it's more so the 174th dinosaur to be created overall, instead of it just being 174th Herrerasaurus is what I meant. Sorry. So it's interesting. It's interesting
I
with the
I
what was
actually totally agree with you. However,
yeah,
I do think because we are missing some of the
yeah.
Tyrannosaurus, like it's that 12-S.003. I am curious which part of that designates an actual like you're saying that the .003 is like iteration of lineage
Not iteration,
connecting
not iteration. Iteration in terms of the 0.003 or 0.174, they're the name, like the
like
numbered name of a creature. And I only refer to this because when Augustus had his AVI video from his the actual YouTube video, they refer to Augustus not just as Augustus, but they also say 174 blah blah blah. Rather than just saying Augustus did this, they say 174. Does that make sense?
yes.
How I said it? Perfect, yeah.
Uh,
So I'm presuming
it's
that
a
that's also sorry,
EIP
sorry.
designation and how the EIP is aged, something along those lines.
If it's an EIP or if it's the third dinosaur created, not third Rex, but third dinosaur, 174th in terms of through the machine, I mean.
Right.
Or if it is the EIP name tag, because in Legacy, the EIP profile was literally just your Steam profile. So it's the Steam ID 64. We see Korn, he has Korn Damien, he has the same thing where the Olympus transmitter puts his whole thing. I do wonder if they do move it to EIPs having just a three-digit thing. It'd be very interesting. It limits us though to only 999 EIP name designations, but yeah, I don't know. It is interesting because we lack so much information on that regard.
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
I'd say if it's just if the EIPs are all of the players currently in a server, I'd say 999 is well within the bounds of whatever a server is going to be able to support. So I'd say it could even work out that way.
yeah.
It doesn't have to
I'm
be
not yeah, like I feel like having 1,000 dinosaurs, machine synthetically created dinosaurs is a lot. Is a large maximum that you can have, in terms of like if you want to set a bar for like I feel like 1,000 is a good number because this island gateway at least only 190 uh, is 14 kilometers. 14. How do you say area? Area.
kilometers squared.
How would you say it? It's 14 kilometers squared. So it's pretty small. Like if you look at the size of Malta, Malta is 316 kilometers squared, where Gateway
Well,
is, what is it?
because of how
Is
kilometers,
more than
it's 14 by
yeah,
14, I believe, is how it is. So
14
how?
by 14, which makes it 196 kilometers squared in terms
Yes.
of area, which is like half the size of Malta, which Malta is about like if you look at it, Malta is like a thumb right below Sicily, like a very tiny thumb um, right below Sicily. So it's very, very small island. So having 1,000 dinosaurs, synthetically created dinosaurs, that is like a large number. So in terms of lore, 100% makes sense.
Right, and you're also limiting it to an individual of a species. So, in
Well,
addition,
I have a feeling it's not limiting to
well,
the species itself.
true, because you mentioned the synth.
Yeah, where it just refers to synth. Of course, that might change. You know, it's just as we said before. Of course, it's not card like lore. It's
Right.
just worded information from Dondi,
I'm
so it
of the
could actually
opinion that
change.
was like an offhand remark where he's like, "Oh yeah, it's this," and they said
Yeah.
internally. So I'm assuming within that internal amount, they would know. Oh yeah, we're talking about Rex's currently synth whatever. That's
Mm,
the Rex created that does this. I feel
yeah.
like there's other
There's a
factors that
potential.
weren't explicitly mentioned that should be considered.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I said it, I kind of said it before, but I think we need one more video. Like, if we get a Maya trail cam and they refer to the Maya as synth, that I think would be a bit more indicative, but it just has to be something we have to ask Dondi if we want to be specific about it.
We need like
But
80 more
yeah,
videos. What are you talking about?
uh, but yeah, maybe we get a document, a law document soon on the Horde test. Maybe
I
something. I don't know.
would like a lot of things. I want all of the things.
A man can dream. A man
Yeah.
can dream.
Do we
Anyways,
have anything else that we want to bring up before we call it
nothing
here?
really. I feel like, yeah, I think we've discussed guts with the new stuff and discussed synths. Uh, we don't really have anything else to say. We've gone over the Diabloceratops one ages back. We talked about synth just then and guts. We are in a drought right now of lore. Oh no, that's so terrible.
Hmm.
But but yeah, we're just in this period where it's getting Christmas. Everything's gonna get a bit more slower, and we've discussed a good
Yeah.
large of things. We haven't done a lot of hard theory work right now because we can't really theorize when
Yeah.
there's nothing to theorize on.
There's a reason it's been 2 months since the
Yeah,
last podcast episode. It's
yeah,
exam period. There's all sorts of stuff going on, and there's not a ton of lore. There's just not a ton to talk
yeah,
about, and there's other things to do.
yeah. But this is a good breather episode. It's wasn't heavy lore in terms of theorizing, but it was a good amount of
Just general
just
discussion.
reflecting what we've gotten recently
Yeah.
and general discussion. Yeah,
All right.
but
Well,
yeah, that was good.
I believe that's all. Have a good one, everybody. And if you find
Okay.
anything, feel free to pop into the Isle lore theories and tell us, because we desperately are looking for anything at this point.
If you find anything, do message.
Have a good one,
But yeah,
everybody.
I think well, next video will be when the horde test drops.
Alrighty. So,
Nice.
yep, that's all. Have a good one.